I'm wearing this Percy shirt. I mean, I'm wearing Spider-Man. Survived my trip to New York, which is like sort of the vibe of this episode. So yeah. Fucking Oracle. I forgot.
Hi, I'm Percy. It's nice to meet you.
Oh my
Shall
God,
go west and face the God who has turned, and you shall find what was stolen and see it safely returned.
The Oracle has confirmed what we expected, that this quest
It didn't
will
even give
proceed
him that thing about the front.
toward
What?
Hades.
Where's the
The
red?
entrance to Hades' domain will choose two to join you on this quest and ensure
Annabeth.
customarily one waits to at least hear a name or two before choosing.
We need to get it back, right?
Yes.
And it's gonna be a
Now on to the other candidates.
Is that fucking?
Dude, what have you been doing? Funny. No, seriously, who'd you choose? I chose you.
Let's go, dude. Let's go.
Why?
You shall be betrayed by the one who calls you friend, and fail to save what matters most in the end.
Wait, so why would you choose?
I trust you. And right now, nothing's more important than that. I'm gonna pack the best snacks.
That's so layered. Does he not trust Luke? That's interesting. Why doesn't he have a bed?
$100 in cash and
There's more than that in the book.
a bag of these. I think they're Canadian, maybe? Or from Chuck E. Cheese, I don't know.
They're gold for Mythic World. Don't mix them up.
He's so cool.
Well, these are interesting. Those are interesting. If it gets in the way of the quest, Annabeth might try to. And you told me you'll always be on her side no matter what. And
It's okay. Really, I get
He
it.
thinks it's Annabeth. Oh my God. Talia.
she's really gonna miss that tree, huh? When Annabeth first raised.
What?
Mrs. Stotts? Yes.
What about the second
One was our algebra then. So, at the last moment, Zeus intervened. She made a pine cone's fate.
Shut up.
And you are not. Follow you. Do exactly as I say.
Does she think she's in charge? Who do you think would be in charge?
She is.
I guess I assumed we'd do a show of hands or something. And to be charged with one is a conversation with the god.
We're soldiers on a mission. It's not a vacation.
Thank you for clearing that up. This is get to breathe fresh air and buy our own snacks.
There's no voting. Chips and soda's okay for you guys?
I don't think you should just get to decide we don't vote.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Okay? I want to vote on whether you get to decide we don't vote.
Over.
Why is it clapping?
I have a better idea.
Why is it clapping?
Oh golly, the road's getting bumpy cause I got me some friends who just can't get along. Oh dear, when the team's getting grumpy, the trick to getting through it is singing this song. What are you doing? It's a consensus song. Verse 2 encourages.
I'm shook.
Chips and soda's okay for you guys?
Whatever.
Yes, please. That's so good.
Okay.
That's so good. And okay, we have $200, babe.
I smell fear. That's bees. What a monster senses kind of depends on the monster. Some are better at sensing your.
You guys were better at your job. I might not have noticed you here so easily.
If Thalia were better at hers, there might not be a family of squirrels making for their home.
Is that why Hades sent you here?
That's why.
To gloat?
The pride of Athena's offspring. Perhaps the most formidable demigod child alive.
Why are you here? We don't need help. We're fine.
We're fine.
We haven't even gotten to Trenton, and we're wandering through a forest. I didn't even know they had forests in New Jersey, but we found one.
Why are you so afraid of who you are?
What? Do you know what? I'm not afraid.
Yes, you are.
It's
You
gonna
are
be
just a
dark
kid.
now.
At least let's call your mom.
Excuse me?
It's his job.
He was my protector first.
First? What do you mean first? Say to protector. That was you.
Yeah, we figured that out so quick.
Why didn't you tell me?
Because he
Do you guys smell
Come on.
What?
Auntie M has a garden full of petrified stone folks.
Oh,
Yeah. This is someone from our world, alright.
wait.
Anyone want to guess what M is short for?
Oh, shoot.
If you have something to resolve, you son of Poseidon. I'm Medusa.
And I definitely trust my mom.
Okay.
So I'm going in. You guys think it's safe to eat?
Percy, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm really hungry, and I'm ready to take that chance.
This isn't the same for me as it is for you.
Why?
You're concerned I would hold a grudge against you simply because you are a daughter of Athena? Shouldn't be.
So you're not a monster. What are you then?
A survivor.
You must be a little more than that.
I don't like bullies.
I don't like bullies.
When one shows up on my doorstep, they end up spending a lot more time there than they plan. You love her?
Of course I do.
And so did I. Athena was everything to me. I worshipped her. I prayed to her. I made offerings. I wasn't like you, sweetheart. I was you. Embarrassed her and I needed to be punished. Not him. Me.
Oh, she's about to kill you.
Get ready to run.
She's not usually like that. I mean, a little bit. She is, but that was a lot.
She's going to betray you. Your mother and I, we're like sisters in a way. Targeted by the same monster. So I find myself, where is she now?
Dead.
Your
Dead and
mother.
gone. Dead and buried.
I could help you remove them from the equation so that you can be free of them. If you ask me to.
Oh. Oh, God. That was kind of good.
Did you hear that?
Are you okay?
Yeah, you chopped
Did
her
you
out.
say something?
Ew.
My hands are kind of full.
Of course.
Uncle Vernon. Is he crying?
What is it?
Uncle Ferdinand. Oh, no.
Grover, I'm so sorry.
This is as far as he got on this quest.
Because all day I've been trying to keep this quest on track without upsetting either of you. Fighting with her. You've been fighting with me because the Oracle said one of you would betray me. Okay? I chose her because I couldn't imagine we'd ever be friends. And I chose you because I thought if I can count on anyone to be on my side, no matter what, it was you. And now I'm feeling so alone. I don't know what to think or who to trust.
Say he doesn't.
I didn't mean it that way. What did you say? I killed her sister. Medusa offered to help me save my mom if I turned to the two of you.
What'd you say?
I got for head.
Decide that as long as the three of us are together, none of us are gonna be alone.
That's right.
And if we
If she says impertinent, I'll
Why not?
leave.
See this as impertinent.
I am impertinent.
Yes, but
faults here, that cannot be.
Oh, shit.
You're gonna sing the song, aren't you?
Sing it.
Okay.
Oh, golly. The roads get
Whatever.
bumpy. Consensus.
Are we gonna see Thin Man while we're at Okay. Oh my god. I'm going to be doing my little analysis of episode 3, of course. I will just start off the bat by saying this is actually the best episode of the show so far. Maybe one of the best episodes of television I have ever seen. Like, bold stance, I know. But, like, for real. For real. Anyway. Okay, so I'm gonna do how I always do it. Start by saying all my complaints that I may have, and then go through the entire episode, talk about everything that I loved, all the little details, the nuances, everything. And then finish off by talking about all of the themes that were really hit hard in the episode. And so, yeah, that's how we're gonna do it. But normally I start off by saying any complaints I have about the episode. And I literally tried to think of some, but I genuinely have no complaints. I think this episode was perfect. Like, dare I say, it's, like, I don't know what they could have done to make it better. Which I know is, like, crazy, but yeah. So, we're not getting any complaints in this, oh my god, a spat, goodbye. We're not getting any complaints in this video today, so hope you don't miss that part. But yeah, moving right on, let's just get into the episode. So we start immediately cold open to the attic of the big house. We're talking to the Oracle. I think the vibe, the music, the set design, everything of the attic, pristine, so good. It really set the vibe. It was like spooky, it was eerie, it was everything. Yeah. And so then the Oracle also, it's supposed to be like a mummy. And oh my god. It's so funny because, like, reading the books, you have your own vision. And, like, even, like, Rick writing the words of what he's envisioning, you might see it a different way. And so I literally saw it as, like, a King Tut, like, sarcophagus. Like, a box, like, tomb sort of vibe. Not, like, a mummy as in, like, a, like, corpse. But I guess Rick envisioned a corpse. Because there's even a part in, like, in the Sea of Monsters. When is it, dude? At some point, they're playing Capture the Flag, and the Oracle, like, comes into the woods. And I literally just envisioned it as, like, a tomb. Like, anyway. It's like a corpse. Anyway. It's just, like, so spooky. But he, like, starts to talk to it. He has, like, a really funny voice crack when he says hi to the Oracle, because he's, like, scared. It's so perfect. He talks to the Oracle. The Oracle appears as Gabe, which is something that actually, like, is in the books, which I did not remember. And so Gabe popped up and I was like, what is happening? But it's actually in the book. So yeah. And then Gabe delivers the first 2 lines of the prophecy. The whole, you shall go west and face the god who has turned. See what was stolen. Wait. Find what was stolen. See it safely returned. And then it cuts. And it cuts to his little selection process where they've gathered all of, like, the head counselors, all the cabins and stuff. And Chiron is like, you may now choose 2 demigods out of this selection to come on your quest. And it's all, like, a lot of them aren't named, but, like, Clarice is there, Luke is there, Chris is there. So I guess maybe it's not head counselors, because if Chris is a child of Hermes, which, like, I didn't realize, they're not both the head counselor. So maybe it's just, like, the top demigods, whatever. Clarice is there, Luke's there, Chris is there, Annabeth is there, and I'm pretty sure that's all the named people that we are aware of. But they're all there. And Chiron's, like, explaining the process, sort of, and, like, Percy cuts him off and is just immediately like, Annabeth. And obviously everyone cheered. Everyone's like, everyone being the audience, not, like, actually in the show. We're all like, oh my god, he's choosing Annabeth. But then we see him go have a little conversation with Grover, and he's like, I'm choosing you, bro. And Grover's like, what? And so it's this whole thing of, like, why would he choose Grover? He's, like, not in the lineup, all this stuff. And that's when we cut back to the Oracle and we see the rest of the prophecy, which is, "You shall be betrayed by one who calls you friend and fail to save what matters most in the end." And so we're like, ooh. And it's this whole thing of like, okay, well then why would he choose Grover? Because like Grover's obviously the one that calls him friend. But it's so sweet. Percy comes to the conclusion that like Grover, although he's like his best friend, he would not do that. Like he wouldn't betray him, even if the prophecy is telling him that his best friend will betray him. He's like, it won't be Grover, and I trust that. And I love this whole part of the episode where he's like talking about like why he chose Grover and Annabeth, because it showed like in the book it's just sort of like Grover and Annabeth it's just sort of like given that they're going with him, but like it's showing like real like critical thinking skills from Percy here, choosing like who to take on this quest to be the most beneficial to his goal of saving his mom. And like it's just a really interesting, like he's got this like secret agenda and he's like thinking things through in his own head, and it's very smart of him. And so basically we're like, period, he chose Annabeth and Grover, and then that's when we get this little scene with Luke. Hold on, let me read my notes just to make sure I'm on the right track. Okay, yeah, he has this little scene with Luke, and that's when Luke gives him the flying shoes, which Luke is like, oh, it's just a little gift for your quest, but like we know something's up. But Percy doesn't know that. And Luke's really playing it off, and Percy is like, sorry I didn't choose you for the quest, and Luke's like, it doesn't matter. And then he goes in to explain that obviously we know he chose Grover because he trusts that Grover won't be the one to betray him, but then we're like, then why would he choose Annabeth, like all this stuff. And he basically reveals this insane piece that he's like, I know, like he thinks that Annabeth will be the one to betray him, and he's like, I couldn't choose Luke and Annabeth because Luke said that he would always be on Annabeth's side, and so he's like, if I choose Luke and Annabeth's gonna betray him, and then Luke is gonna join Annabeth, and then Percy's gonna be alone and he won't be able to complete his quest and save his mom. So he chose Grover, so at least he would have Grover with him to help save Sally. So like the thoughts are there, but that's so insane. And the way he told it, oh my god, the way he told it directly to Luke, I'm actually just fathoming this right now, because he doesn't even tell Annabeth and Grover about that until like later in this episode, but he tells Luke immediately that the prophecy said someone would betray him, which is obviously Luke. So I can't even think about it. So yeah, and then Luke gives him the flying shoes, and then they're off, and it cuts immediately to Annabeth like sort of like giving a farewell to Talia's tree, and then this insane scene. I'm gonna read you some quotes from Percy during this scene atop Camp Half-Blood Hill. He says, the first thing he says is, she's gonna really miss that tree, huh? Because he just doesn't know the lore about Talia and Annabeth and Grover and Luke and all that. And then basically Grover does the same whole gag that he does in the book, where he pretends that Annabeth's protector wasn't him. He talks about like the satyr protector in like a third person stance, because he's so like ashamed of that whole situation, so he doesn't want Percy to know about it. So he sort of like explained the whole thing about like Talia fighting off these monsters and staying behind and dying for her friends. And Annabeth shows up and she's like, Talia met a hero's fate. She fought valiantly and she something. And then she's like, you are not Talia. That's something that she says. Or what is it? I don't actually remember. But she says something about like, you are not Talia. But she also says she met a hero's fate. And Percy responds with, she met a pinecone's fate. And then it cuts back to Annabeth, and her face, she's like she is not having it with him. And I like Leah's, oh my god, all of their acting in this episode, but like Leah's facial expressions, because Annabeth, so much of Annabeth is internal, and so like she's really got the Annabeth like glare, I love it. And then like as they're walking away, like Annabeth like turns away and walks. She leaves. But then Percy and Grover, and she basically says like follow what I say and like maybe you survive this. And Percy's like, who decided that she was in charge? And Grover responds with like, who did you think was gonna be in charge? And I love it. It's so good. And then they take a little cab. They didn't wait. Hold on. I'm mixing up my lore. They take Argus, I think, is the one that drives them into the city. I actually don't remember. They get into the city somehow and getting out of the car, you know. And then there's this shot of Annabeth as she gets out of the car, and she's just like looking around like so in awe because she hasn't left camp since she was 7. Like she hasn't been in the outside world, and that's such a huge part of like why she wants to be on this quest, so she can like go out and like prove herself. And so just her going out, not only seeing the world but seeing like sleigh architecture, she would just be so in awe. Oh my god, it's so good. Then we cut to them straight on the bus. Basically on the bus, Percy and Annabeth are bickering a lot. They're having a little conflict of interest because Annabeth wants to and should be in charge because she knows that she's more experienced, but Percy wants, but it's like his quest, so he wants to have like more control over what they're choosing. And so like she is like, I'm going to get us snacks, you stay here because monsters will come get us if you don't. But he like wants to go out and like get fresh air or whatever, so they like fight about that. And then one of the most insane things I've ever seen ever is Grover singing the Consensus song. Nothing could have prepared me. Like actually nothing could have prepared me. If you told me in this episode there would be like a song, like I would not have believed you. But it's so precious. It's so Grover. Grover, I think I'm gonna talk about this a lot, and I think I have talked about this a lot. Grover's sort of like place or like role in this trio is so great in the show, and so much better than it was in the books. In the books, he was sort of like, he was literally just the comedic relief, and he was meant to be this whole like protector of everyone because he's like the satyr, right? But he's like low-key getting in the way in the books. Like he doesn't really help that much. All he does is like talk to animals every once in a while, and it like helps them. But like in the books, Grover is like not really that great of a help. But specifically in this episode, Grover has such an important role of being like the soul of the group and being like the mediator. And like especially because Grover is 24, he's like, it's this whole thing about like he's mentally the same age as them, but like I think they're sort of adjusting that a little bit for the show because he does seem to be like older and more wise in this episode, as he's like, he like is seeing both perspectives of Percy and Annabeth as they're fighting this entire episode, and he's making them see that, and he's trying to like get them to understand each other and like help them get through this quest. It's so good. So yeah, Grover's really, really grown on me. So yeah. Excuse me. So then basically he sings the Consensus song. He's trying to get them to see each other's side, all this stuff. And then Annabeth goes in to get her candy, and there's this scene which in my mind can be interpreted in like one of two ways. Either, so it's like Annabeth alone in the store, and she is like trying to choose candy, and she ends up like getting like so much candy because she can't decide which one to get. And my thoughts are like, this could either be because she like doesn't know candy because she hasn't been in the outside world in 5 years, and so it could be that she's just like indecisive and doesn't know which one to pick. Or I'm like, she might be like, she doesn't know which one is like Percy and Grover's favorite, so she might be like trying to choose, like she doesn't know which one they're gonna like, and she's trying to get them to like her. So like I don't know if that's what was meant by that scene, but just some options for interpretation. Yeah. But then also, just funny line, as Annabeth's in the store, there's this part where Percy and Grover are talking about monsters and like how to spot a monster, and Grover says, or no, Percy says they smell fear, and Grover says that's bees, and I just thought that was really funny. And then Annabeth's like in the store and she like senses the monster because obviously she's so well trained, she's so smart, she's so aware, and I love her. And then there's this amazing scene, amazing dialogue between Annabeth and Electro on the bus. Annabeth's invisible with her hat on, and she's just sitting down to chat, and her Electro have this little chat, and it's so good. And this is the first of 2 offerings in this episode. Basically, Electro offers Annabeth that like if Annabeth gives up Percy and Grover, gives up Percy. If Annabeth gives up Percy to her, then she will allow Annabeth to continue on her quest like uninterrupted, and she'll be all good and all this stuff. Which is like obviously Annabeth's goal, but Annabeth says no. Well, she doesn't say no, she just like walks away. Yeah, and then they have this whole like throwdown on the bus with the Furies, and they escape and they run out into the woods. And there's this whole thing in the woods of Percy being like, we need to call camp, we need a phone, and Annabeth being like, why? Like, we don't need help, we're fine. And she's like, what, do you think this would like be easy? And she's talking all this like, she's like, you need to like get it together. And it's so funny. And she says this line, she says, why are you so afraid of who you are? Like, gag him. Like, it's crazy. Because she's basically saying, like, you're a child of the big 3 gods. Like, you're one of the most powerful demigods alive. Like, act like it. Is essentially what she's saying. And then, yeah. They're just having this whole fight in the woods. They're just very much not seeing each other's side. And Percy, what does he say? Percy's talking about, like, again, he's like, we need help. And so he says, let's call your mom, which obviously hits a sore spot on Annabeth. And then Annabeth, it says to Grover, she's like, Grover, can you please tell your friend to get it together? And Percy's like, I don't know why you're bringing him into this. Like, he's my friend, like, my protector. And Annabeth was like, he's my protector first. And it reveals this whole thing that, like, Grover was the satyr that he was talking about. That, like, when Talia died, like, it was Grover who was there and all this stuff. Just revealing all the lore. It's great. And then, as this starts to happen, Grover's like, I smell hamburgers. And they go to what they quickly figure out is Medusa's lair. And so, like, they're, like, walking up to Medusa's lair, and they see all the stone statues, and Annabeth is like, okay, y'all, this is Medusa, obviously. Which, this is different than the book, because in the book, the whole fight is, like, they go into the diner, and then something's weird, and then she's trying to kill them just, like, immediately, and then they figure out it's Medusa, then they attack her and run away, and that's, like, it. What the deal is here is they're, like, right in front of Medusa's. They figure out it's Medusa, and they're like, oh my gosh, we have to get out of here. Then Electro shows up, and so they're like, we can't go that way, because we're getting hunted by a Fury. And then Medusa comes out with her little evil sing-songy ASMR voice, and she's like, I'm Medusa. And she, basically, if they're with Medusa, Electro won't attack them, because Electro doesn't want to die for Medusa. And so Medusa, like, invites them in for lunch. And this begins one of the most unexpected things I've ever seen in my life. I was not expecting them to change Medusa, but they changed it in such a good way. Basically, like, Medusa's story is, like, often misrepresented, because it's often just like, oh, scary lady with snake hair, but really she was a victim of Poseidon, and then, like, Athena blamed her for everything, and then cursed her with the snake hair and, like, all this stuff. And so she's, like, very much, like, was wronged and she's not like this like just plain evil monster that everyone made her out to be. And so when The Lightning Thief originally was written in 2005, Rick went with the more like stereotypical, just like, oh, scary lady with snake hair. But now, given the opportunity to make it a more nuanced and like accurate to the original myth, they make her like such a strong, like, and it's like the perfect balance between like telling her actual story of her being a victim and also not taking away like her scariness. Like, she's still very scary, and it's amazing. So I love how they changed her character for real. It's so good. So I'm just reading my notes. Please hold. So, okay, Annabeth immediately knows it's Medusa, which I think is so good, because I think in the books I was always like, how is Annabeth not putting this together? It's obviously Medusa. Anyway, then they see her walk out, and Annabeth and Grover are like, oh my gosh, and they immediately turn away. And there's just like, it's just this moment where Percy like sees them duck, and he's like 2 seconds too late, and he's just like, because he's like, oh, I guess they're ducking, I guess I gotta duck now. It's so funny. And then Percy is essentially like, Annabeth is like, we cannot go in there. Medusa, no, because Athena was the one who cursed Medusa, so like Athena kids are always like, Medusa's evil. But Percy, being the son of Sally Jackson, Sally, with her famous quote, not everyone who looks like a monster is a monster, she taught him that Medusa is actually a victim, and so he's like, I think we can trust her. And so he goes in, Grover goes in, Annabeth reluctantly goes in, and Annabeth, as she goes in, she says to Percy, this isn't the same for me as it is for you, because she's been so taught that like Medusa's evil, and she thinks that like, because of what Athena did to her, Medusa may come after her more than she would Percy or Grover. And then some more, just like another line. This line gagged me. Percy says to her, so you're not a monster, what are you then? And Medusa says, a survivor. Oh my god. She also says, the gift that the gods gave me was that I cannot be bullied anymore. Love. And then there's look, I'm not here to be like shipping Medusa and Athena because I get that it's in like a like worship way, like in a like you're a god, like I'm worshiping a god way, but it was just, she really was like, I loved Athena so much, Athena's all that ever mattered to me, and I was just like, okay, I see you, girl. There's also just this shot, I just like, actually they could have done it in a different way, but they didn't, and it was so subtle, and it was like during this part where she was talking about like, I worshipped Athena so much, but she never answered my prayers, she ignored me and all this stuff, and as she's saying like she ignored me, talking about Athena, it's a shot of the three, like Percy, Grover, and Annabeth, and in the beginning it's focused on like Percy in the foreground, but then as she says like, she ignored me, she never answered my prayers, it like the camera, the focus slowly shifts back to Annabeth's face, because Athena doesn't care about her because Athena never answers Annabeth's prayers ever. And so it's just this like this connection between Annabeth and Medusa that is so like, oh my god, this episode is so like characterizes Annabeth in such a crazy way. Like, we are so lucky that this was like, this is pretty much like the, I guess she was in a lot of episode 2, but this is the first episode that like Annabeth is in it the majority, and like like just for her to be so, showing her so loyal to her mom, because that's like all of this is Annabeth's loyalty to her mom, because you could be reading this as like, why is Annabeth being so aggressive to Medusa when she's like telling her story, and why is Annabeth immediately calling her a liar and like all this stuff, but it's because of Annabeth's loyalty to her mom. That's what it is. And we see her entire like vision of that, and like stance on like where her mom is. Like, she places her mom on such a pedestal, but we see that completely like shatter in this episode, and it's so crazy. Okay. Okay, but another line from Medusa to Annabeth: I wasn't like you, sweetheart, I was you. Because Annabeth wanting to be seen by her mom, Medusa wanting to be seen by Athena, it's the same thing. And so basically Annabeth comes out and she's like, I don't believe you, you're a liar, like my mother is always just. And that like breaks Medusa. Like Medusa from that point on, that's when she enters her villain mode. And so she's like, something's burning, and she goes to the other room and Percy comes with her, and then she says to Percy, hold on, she says, your mom and I are like sisters in a way, targeted by the same monster, talking about Poseidon. Ooh. Y'all, the lines they gave Medusa, the best writing I've ever heard. Your mom and I were like sisters in a way because we're targeted by the same monster. Oh my god. It's so crazy. Like, I'm so happy they went this direction with Medusa. And like all the parallels, bro. I can't do it. And so basically, okay, Medusa and Percy go into that room, and like once they leave, Annabeth and Grover are still in the little like dining room, and Annabeth says to Grover, she's like, be ready to run, because she knows that she just struck a chord with Medusa, and she knows that Medusa's gonna come after them. So like Percy's in the other room, and then Medusa begins to start talking to Percy, and this is like the second sort of like offer, you know, like the one with Annabeth and Electro, and now we've got the one with Medusa and Percy, where she's essentially like I can get rid of those two so you can be on your way to save your mom. And it's so spooky. That's not like the direct quote. She says something that's much more spooky and like interesting, but it's like a shot, we see Percy, and then the camera cuts to Medusa, and she's like, I can get rid of them, wink wink, nudge nudge, kill them, if you want me to. And then it cuts back and Percy's gone, he has run away. And it's just like Annabeth and Percy both just like dipping at the same time. Love it. And they all run into the basement essentially. Yeah, and then so they're in the basement. I will just say there is this moment pretty early when they're in the basement where like the fire starts and like it illuminates the basement, and there's all these statues of like all these people that Medusa has killed, and there's like a literal, like they did like a jump scare with one of the statues, and I will just say it did get me. It's got me probably like 3 times. I've seen episode 3 times at this point. It came out 2 days ago. I've seen it 3 times, and I probably will see it another time tonight. It's that good. But yeah, there's a pretty good jump scare, I'll give them that. And then Grover puts on the shoes, and he literally just like floats away, which I thought was so funny. Like not even a plot point, just like Grover floating away. Love it. And then we get the real like Medusa attack and fight scene. And so Medusa comes down to the basement. She's full villain mode now, and she has this whole thing about like we are not our parents until we choose to be, and about choosing self-righteousness just like her mother did, and Percy not standing up for loved ones just like Poseidon. And so it's like this whole gag, and then basically this is not how they did it in the book. They do this whole gag, and oh my god, with all the comparisons to the movie, I will just say there's like 2 good parts of the Percy Jackson movie, and it's when he kills Medusa with the back of his iPod, iconic, and then the Lotus Hotel scene. So like we'll see the Lotus Hotel scene, but this and the iPod and the way that they did it in the show are both not how it is in the book, but they're both better. Like they just keep leveling up every time. And so basically what they did this time is so Medusa's here, Percy jumps up with his eyes shut and his sword, which like it was so sweet. Like he looked so afraid, but he's just like and he has his sword. And then Annabeth puts her invisibility cap on Medusa. She goes invisible, which means she can't like turn them into stone anymore. Percy opens his eyes, cuts off her invisible head, and that's how they kill her, which is so smart, like for real. I was so gagged. So yeah, super cool change. And then Percy and Annabeth go upstairs because they're like, we need to get rid of Electro. So basically their plan is to use Medusa's head to kill Electro, this whole thing. And so they go upstairs, and there's just like this really sweet little like Percy and Annabeth like, you know, like beginnings, like crumbs, where they're just like looking at each other, and then Percy's like, my hands are kind of full, and Annabeth's like, oh, and she opens the door for him. He goes outside, and then this part, there's so many things that I'm like, they could have done it a different way, but they didn't because they're smart. They being like the creators of the show. But there's the scene when Percy uses Medusa's head to kill Electro could have easily just been like the camera like following Percy out as he does it, and then getting like a cool shot close up of like Electro being turned into stone, and like a close up of Medusa's head, and like whatever, just like out there. But they didn't do that. Instead, they do the entire shot of him doing it from Annabeth's perspective, as Annabeth is standing behind the little like screen door, and Percy goes forward and does the whole thing, and we're seeing it through like the design of the door, and he does it out here, and it cuts back to Annabeth's face, and it stays on her for like 6 seconds, and it's just her reaction. And it's so layered because there's so many interpretations as to what she's thinking about in that moment, because it's like, first of all, I can't do it. First of all, like perhaps her changing perspective of Percy, because like we know like canonically she doesn't really start to have like a crush on him until like the zebra truck, which is a few episodes from now. But you know, just like that's starting to like not hate him so much and having more of a respect and understanding of him. So like there's that, and then there's like her seeing Percy do something that like this entire quest sort of she's been trying to like be the leader and like not take the votes, and like she's the one that goes into the store, she's the one that kills the Fury, she's the one that like figures out it's Medusa, she's like the one who puts the hat on and like thinks of the whole plan and everything. It's like she's leading, but there's this moment where she's like, she can only do so much, and she has to recognize that it's not her quest and not everything can be done by her, and her like dealing with that. And then there's this also like element of her dealing with like her changing view of her mom as like just like a reflection of everything she just learned about Medusa, who she was just talking to and was like trying to explain to Annabeth like Athena is not as great as she thinks she is, who is now dead, and they're now using Medusa's dead head to kill Electro, yeah. And it's just like there's so much going on in that moment for her, and she's just like scared, and it's like and it's so, I'm just so happy that they did that scene from her perspective, just so we can get that moment of like reflection with her. It's so good. Okay, yeah. So they do that, then they go back downstairs, and then there's this beautiful moment of Grover looking at Uncle Ferdinand and just being like, this is as far as he got on his quest, setting up his whole, you know, like Satyr Protector trying to find Pan thing, which I do not think was set up enough in the book. So props to them for setting it up here. Yeah. And then, oh my god, then this is sort of when like the final fight, the final boss fight between Percy and Annabeth happens, where they both sort of revealed these two offers that they were given that they didn't like agree with and all this stuff. And so And Grover's like being the mediator again, being like the older person there, trying to keep this quest on track. And again, I love it because he has like a real role in this quest, which was not really shown in the books. So it's very good. They deliver the amazing lines of like, Electra offered to help me with the quest if I gave you up to her. What did you say? I killed her sister. And then Medusa offered to help me get my mom if I gave you two up. What did you say? I cut off her head. So good. Yeah. And then there's this scene, I don't remember if it's before or after that part, but Percy's talking about like how overwhelmed and scared he is and how he feels alone, and that's when he reveals the whole thing about like he will be betrayed by a friend. And it's amazing acting, Walker, like hello, it really tugged the heartstrings. It was so good. Yeah. And then there's this part where the part that Grover really is like the mediator here is basically Percy suggests that they take Medusa's head, put the hat on it, and like bury it. And Annabeth doesn't say anything, but she's obviously like, that's my hat. And so Grover comes in and he's like, he is trying to make them both see each other's side because he's the soul of the group. And so he's like, Annabeth, this is like, sorry, low battery. He's like, this is Annabeth's hat, like her only gift from her mother. She needs to keep that, like to Percy. And then to Annabeth, he's like, Percy has the chance to save his mom, who is like the only person that's ever cared about him. And we need to respect that and understand that. And it's just like, he's so important, bro. Grover has never been important ever, and he's so important now. Love it. Okay, and then we get the whole boxing up the head for Olympus. We get the whole I am impertinent scene. Love it. And then Grover's like, we can't do that. Like, the gods are gonna hate that. And then Percy starts singing the consensus song, and it's so funny. And then after this, that's basically the end of the episode, but we do get a little, like, extra bit, which nothing could have prepared me for this, but it's just this scene, it's Hermes, it's Lin-Manuel Miranda, like, I don't even know how to say it, but it's him in an elevator, and of course he's singing, of course he is, and, like, I'm just so, like, I don't care what you guys say, I'm so happy that Lin-Manuel Miranda's in this show, bro. It's so funny. Like, that is so funny. And if he does not sing an episode with the Los Casino, he better, bro. So, yeah. Oh, and I loved, bro, there's so much in this episode. Hermes, I've always seen as, like, more of a chill god. Like, he's, like, out in the world. He's more, like, personable, I see. Like, he delivers packages. In Sea of Monsters, he, like, has a conversation with Percy. Like, he's not really too high and mighty compared to the rest of the other gods. And so I loved the literal one line that Lynn had as Hermes is him with the package going to Olympus and him being like, you guys are not going to believe this, as he's, like, kind of, like, laughing. Because I love to think that, like, Hermes is kind of like, okay, Percy Jackson, like, he kind of thinks it's funny, too. So, I love it. This is so long, bro. Okay. Then, main themes of the episode. Percy trying to figure out, like, what the true friends he can trust are. I didn't even talk about this part, bro. Okay. He says to Annabeth, this is one of my favorite parts of the episode. Percy, when they're fighting, says to Annabeth, or he says to Grover, I chose you because I didn't think you would ever betray me, even if it came down to it or whatever. And then he says to Annabeth, I chose you because I don't think you would ever consider me a friend. So I don't think you would ever be the friend to betray me. Because he doesn't think that they could even be friends. And, like, him saying that after her little moment of, like, realization and respect upstairs, him being like, I don't think you would ever consider me to be a friend. It's layered, bro. It's layered, bro. Like, little do they know. Anyway. So yeah, him being like, what are the true friends I can trust? Obviously, the entire theme about, like, not everyone who looks like a monster is a monster, and Medusa being a victim. The whole theme about, like, we are not our parents, you know, Annabeth coming to the realization that her mother may not be as great as she may have been taught to be. And that goes back to camp too, because at Camp Half-Blood they're taught to believe that all the gods are, like, high and mighty, like these perfect people. And yeah. And then the fourth theme of just, like, them, like, learning to feel empathy for each other, like Grover having to be like, y'all are both going through stuff and we just gotta work through it together. Like, goodbye. It's so good. So yeah, episode 3, like, so perfect. When they said that, like, Medusa, or like Jessica Parker Kennedy, who plays Medusa, they were like, she's so good in this episode, and I was like, okay, but, like, how good could Medusa really be? like literally someone told me to shut up, because, like, literally perfect. Anyway, such a good ep.